Good morning, everyone. Here it is Sunday morning, March 1st. And for me, anyway, that means there are 2 weeks until one of the most important cooking holidays of the year, and that, of course, would be St. Patrick's Day. So it's time to start our annual tradition of preparing corned beef. And this time I'm doing it live, largely because I'm trying to encourage as many people as possible to try making their own homemade corned beef, because it's totally worth it. Did I just say totally? Anyway, here once again we've got the old, well, not old, the new Lodge cast iron black lock skillet. And I like using this especially because it's shaped like a chef's skillet, so this is especially good for what we're doing here today. Here we are. All we're doing this morning actually is just simply, nice and simple, toasting some spices here. All I've done is mix these together, and I'm just really just stir frying them in a dry cast iron pan. I did not add any oil or grease to the pan. All I'm doing is just heating them up until they start to snap, crackle, and pop, and that should only take a few minutes or so. Because when preparing spices, if you really want to bring out the best flavor in them, you should actually toast them before putting them to use. This is a tradition very commonly used in Asia, especially if you're making dishes like pho or the like. You usually want to toast the spices first. So we are applying this to our corned beef. The spices for the corned beef, anyway. Store-bought corned beef, of course, comes with this tiny little spice packet that might contain, oh, I don't know, maybe this many spices here. But if you really want to add some great flavor to your13 beef, you really want to do this yourself. It also helps that I'm preparing a 13-pound brisket, which is a lot larger than what you would normally buy at the store, which again is a good reason to prepare the spices yourself. Not to mention the aroma of these toasting spices is something you don't want to miss. Like so many of the recipes I use here, these ingredients are kind of cobbled together. I took a little bit from everything, some from the traditional oriental spices used, which is why we have things like cardamom pods in this. Although most of these are also traditional European or at least British or Irish spices. We've got some sliced ginger, we've got juniper berries, mustard seeds, coriander seeds, peppercorns, whole cloves, probably one or two I've missed, but the recipe, of course, is on my website. Oh, and some bay leaves in here as well. These spices are really not hard to get for the most part. Most of them you can probably find at your typical supermarket. For some of them, you may have to take a trip to an ethnic market, which I consider to be a good thing, because you can always find something interesting at a foreign market, and it's really worth going out of your way to browse one of those places and this would be a good excuse to do so if you have never done this before. Okay, I dropped one here. If I figure right, as I said, these spices should start crackling really any moment now. It really does not take long to do this. Anyway, these are the spices that will be added to the brine, which is just going to be your typical about a gallon of water with some kosher salt and brown sugar mixed in, brought to a boil, and these spices added in. At which point then, we will let the brine cool off, and then it will be ready to be used. Now, preparing your own homemade corned beef is just as easy as, say, brining your Thanksgiving turkey, because that's all we're doing here. In fact, it's actually easier because a corned beef is smaller than a turkey, and so you can easily stick it in the back of the refrigerator. You know, a turkey, of course, often won't fit like that, but this is much easier. And it's really no more than just preparing the brine. Let it cool off, as I said. Stick your brisket in a big bag, preferably an oven bag or brining bag. Cover it all up. Stick it in the back of the refrigerator. Set it and forget it. And you don't have to do a thing until about 2 weeks from now. Actually, only about a week. It only takes like maybe 1 week or so. But you can certainly brine longer than that, which is why I'm doing this now. So that means really for everybody else, if you have never tried making your own corned beef before, right now is the best time to go and do it. You got, oh, I don't know, maybe about a week or so to go and find yourself some brisket, preferably on sale. Gather the ingredients together and give it a try. Now, there's really nothing wrong with using a store-bought corned beef, of course. I mean, especially since I know that in a week or so, once St. Patty's Day comes, store-bought corned beef is going to get incredibly cheap in some places. I believe I can go into Price Chopper, for instance. I'll probably see it at least for, oh, I don't know, could be 50 cents a pound or so. Which means a decent-sized 4 to 5 pound corned beef will only cost maybe $5 or so. So yes, if you don't want to go through this work, it is worth it to just pick up a cheap corned beef that way. And in fact, I'm going to do that also, so that I can make a corned beef hash video. However, I really, really recommend you take the time to try doing this yourself at least once. In fact, you could even get a store-bought corned beef. Oops, oh well. Get a store-bought corned beef, make these spices, and then use that to cook the corned beef. One nice thing, of course, is you can add your own spices to it. It will really bring up the flavor. I do watch some of those other YouTube videos, and I do see that just yesterday, seems that one of our other cast iron video friends, the Backwoods Gourmet, also did a corned beef video. And I believe recently he said a couple of nice things as well, so here's a shout out to Backwoods Gourmet. Thank you very much for your kind words, although your channel is like about 3 times bigger than mine is right now. So I actually am quite envious of your success. Of course, guys like Backwoods Gourmet they have the time to spend like about several hours every single day pumping out these videos. Unfortunately, I work a full-time job, running like about 40 to 50 hours a week. And so I do not, unfortunately, have the time to pump out a video like this every other day, much as I would like to. Yeah, making these videos has always been like a stress relief for me more than anything else. I did recently monetize my channel, and yeah, I'm getting a little bit of money from YouTube for that, which is nice, but for me, I've always considered this to be a hobby, and I don't see that changing, because it's fun. I think I'm making a bigger mess than I wanted. Regardless of whether you make your own spices or make your own corned beef, see what I mean? I keep getting this all, throwing this all over the place. Anyway, regardless of whether or not you use store-bought corned beef, the guy in Backwoods Gourmet did start his video with a good point. Don't just simply put it all in a pot, cover it with water, and boil the heck out of it. You'll end up with a mediocre corned beef. And why settle for mediocre when it's very, very easy to make an outstanding corned beef, even if you're using a store-bought? For starters, you do not want to boil it, you want to braise it, meaning you don't have to cover it up with water. There are quite a few videos out there that show someone just putting the corned beef in a crock pot, covering it with water, adding those tiny bits of spice, like maybe about this much, and still coming up with a decent corned beef. But again, if you do something like this, you will have more than decent, you will have outstanding. For starters, as I said, whether or not you use that crock pot, or you go the preferred method and use a cast iron Dutch oven, you want to place the corned beef. Oh, it's starting to pop. You want to place the corned beef into the pot dry, and then just pour a bottle of your favorite beer or ale over it. That's all the braising liquid you need. You do not need to cover it with water. Don't know if you can hear that yet. They are starting to pop. So in about a minute or so, we'll be done. At least with this stage. Once this is done, for the record, I'll be putting it in a nice heat-proof container here. Taking about a third of these spices, putting them in a separate container and keeping them in the fridge, because that's what I'm going to cook the corned beef with in 2 weeks. The rest of it will go into the brine. The snap, crackle, pop, of course, just simply means that it's all nice and dried out, including these bits of ginger. Oh, there's also crushed cinnamon stick in here too. And they're being heated up to the point where they are expanding, you know, like popcorn, really. Whoa. And we're getting close now. Boy, isn't this exciting? Thank you very much for taking the time on a Sunday morning to spend at least a couple of minutes watching this. Yes, there is a little bit of smoke coming from this as well. We are essentially charring these. Oh, any other question? I know. I'm using the large blacklock skillet, yes. What about that stargazer that I just received last week? Hopefully, I'll have the time to work on that a little later today. So we get to see that in action. But right now, I'm still not regretting this blacklock skillet. Alright, it's definitely time to turn off the heat. As I'd say, we're at the point where the spices are good and, as they call it, aromatic, meaning you can definitely smell this. And I wish you were here so you could smell this. Hey, look at this. I'm using my bare hands here. I can definitely feel the difference. Here is, oh yeah, here is hot alright. Here is not so hot. And voila! Here are our spices for this year's corned beef. Next up, we get to bring out a big stock pot, boil some water, and add the spices. I'm looking forward to it. However, as I just said, we're taking maybe about a third of these, setting them aside. To cook our corned beef in 2 weeks. The rest of this goes into the brine. And with that, we are ready for step 2. And now for part 2. Here is our brine. This is nothing more than just a gallon of water with 2 cups of kosher salt, half a cup of brown sugar, and a little secret ingredient, saltpeter. Yes, this is the nitrate that preserves the corned beef and gives it that pink color that we all know. Technically, these days we don't even need to add nitrates to the brine. The whole point of it is that the saltpeter is a preservative, in that you would be able to corn the beef, or brine it in other words, in days before they invented refrigeration. Now, of course, we can just stick this in the back of the refrigerator, so we don't need the saltpeter. But without it, again, it would not have that pink color. So I'm trying to go the traditional route. And as such, we just mix all those ingredients together, add our spices, bring it all to a boil, and then we turn off the heat and let it cool. This may take at least a couple of hours or more. So once this is cooled off, it will be time to bring out the brisket. That's what it's like to have a sharp knife.
Nice sweet. That's good for you.
So, think this is enough corned beef?
I don't know, actually. Slides perfectly. Right in there, fits.
And the hard part is over. Now we just have to wait for 2 weeks and we'll have some awesome corned beef for St. Patrick's Day. As you can see, this was really easy to make, and I do hope you give this a try yourself. It's definitely worth the effort, and the result will be a corned beef brisket that you'll enjoy on St. Patrick's Day or any other time of the year. I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you for watching.